How's everybody doing this morning? If everybody's got their seat at the table and their bacon in front of them, we will go ahead and get this started so we can get you back to work in a timely manner this morning. I'd like to first of all start by welcoming you to the 2022 Legislative Summit. My name is Gene Wunderlich, and it's my honor this morning to be your MC and moderator for our outstanding panel this morning. We've been doing this for a lot of years now, and we always enjoy having a great panel, which I think we've got another outstanding panel for you this morning, so we're excited to do that. During today's presentation, you'll have the unique opportunity to hear presentations as well as a panel discussion from our respected speakers regarding the issues California is facing. Now more than ever, it's important to become involved in the legislative process and work toward our common goals of improving California's future. And I think, again, the folks that we have here with us this morning can tell you a lot about law enforcement, public safety, and why Riverside County, if you've got to live in California, this is a pretty good place to be. So we'd like to begin by taking a moment to thank the businesses that recognize the importance of events such as this. Our sponsors are vital to the mission and success of this event. So if you could please hold your applause until the end, because we got a bunch of them. Our title sponsor today is Abbott. This year's associate sponsors are Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, Fabosi and Miller APC, Pechanga Resort and Casino, Southwest Riverside County Association of Realtors. Art, thank you very much for following instructions over there. Our community sponsors are CR&R Environmental Services, Loma Linda University Medical Center, Murrieta, Mount San Jacinto College, Southern California, Edison. Our corporate sponsors are Birth Choice of Temecula, DCH Auto Group Temecula, Eastern Municipal Water District, Infinium HR Group, Promenade Temecula, Rady's Children's Health Services, Southwest Healthcare Systems, and Temecula Valley Hospital. And a special thanks, of course, to our corporate sponsor and our corporate partner, the City of Temecula. Also, I'd like to thank our special contributors, Timmy D Productions, responsible for our sound this morning, and the Valley News. And of course, we sincerely appreciate today's facility sponsor, as always, South Coast Winery, Resort, and Spa. We'd also like to thank our many dignitaries who came out this morning, and too many to mention, but you'll notice them interspersed around the tables here this morning. So thank them also for taking time out of their busy day to come out and not only support this event, but to get an update on what's happening in law enforcement in Riverside County. Thank you, dear. I've got some coffee up here, but I'll be good. Appreciate that. So the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce would like to thank the many dignitaries again present this morning, and I believe their names are up on the screen over here. And we'd also like to thank, obviously, our Chairman's Elite. The Chairman's Elite Circle is an elite group of business leaders whose continued investment enables the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce to continue and maintain its position as the independent voice of our business community. They were recognized also on the slideshow a little bit earlier this morning and are proudly listed in our program this morning. And of course, we couldn't do this without an exceptional committee. This amazing group of dedicated individuals came together to make this event possible. So please join me in thanking the 2021-2022 Legislative Summit Committee. If the committee members would please stand. We've got Michael Hadley, who's the Western Municipal Water District. Our event co-chair is Morris Myers from Mount San Jacinto College. Our committee members include Alex Brakovich, CR&R Environmental Services, Adam Ivantov, SoCal Gas, Dennis Frank, DR Frank and Associates, Randy Joel Olson, the City of Temecula, Betsy Lowry, City of Temecula, Greg Morrison, Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, Brad Neat, Southwest Healthcare System, Adam Ruiz, Southwest Riverside County Association of Realtors, and myself. So that's a great group, and a lot of those, and also thanks to the Temecula Valley Chamber and Amber who was new in the slot this year and did an excellent job of coordinating us, because even though all the committee members have done this for several years in the past, it takes a certain amount of coordination to keep us all focused and on track. So thanks to Amber for her great help in getting us through this. A little bit about the Southwest California Legislative Council, founded in 2004. The Southwest California Legislative Council is the regional business advocacy coalition of the Temecula Valley, Murrieta, Wildomar, Lake Elsinore Valley, Menifee, and now the Corona Chambers of Commerce. Each month, the council meets to discuss a variety of bills before the legislature from the perspective of the bill's impact on our local business owners. Council communicates these positions and encourages elected officials to listen to the voice of their constituents. To get more involved with this council or to learn more, please contact the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce. Before we start our program, I would like to point out that there are certain cards on each table. If you have questions, please write those down and then hold it up in the air, and we will come around and get them. If it's not too rude, we will we'll probably ask them the question. So now, before we get started, also I would like to first of all take a moment to recognize and share our concerns and thoughts and prayers with the citizens of New York this morning who had another tragedy come down in their city in a subway system back there. And so it's particularly timely this morning to have our own law enforcement personnel here to discuss what they're doing in Riverside County to keep us a little bit safer, hopefully, than we see in a lot of areas around the country. And then if I could get you to stand and join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first speaker this morning was elected as Riverside County District Attorney in 2014, was reelected to a second term in 2018. During his tenure as District Attorney, he's focused on updating technology, reimagining our approach to investigations, vigorous prosecution of serious and violent felons, crime prevention and rehabilitation efforts, state-of-the-art victim support services, and informing our community members regarding important public safety matters. Please welcome District Attorney Mike Hestrin.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here with you. I was commenting as I was walking around this morning. It's great to be in the same room with our faces uncovered and just kind of get a chance to be human again and shake hands. And I don't know, that's just my opinion, and I'm just going to tell you what I really think today. I sound like I have a cold, but it's allergies. I went up a law enforcement race every year, Baker to Vegas race, and I ran that this weekend, and I found out a couple things. I'm old. I shouldn't be running anymore. There's a bunch of young people in my office that can do this, and I don't know why they keep agreeing to do it, but I'm also very allergic to the dust up there in Las Vegas, so that's what it is. So what I'd like to talk to you about today, and I only have a few minutes because we've got other great speakers coming after me, but I want to talk to you about three things. One is fentanyl. The second is homelessness and what the state is purporting to plan to do about it. And third is just overall trends in crime that we're seeing across California. So first, let's start with fentanyl. The fentanyl crisis, and it is a crisis, has been sweeping across the country. In my opinion, it's sort of the secondary effect of the opioid crisis of 10 years ago, started 10 years ago. But the fentanyl crisis is quite different, and it's killing people in record numbers across the country, across the state, and our county has not been immune. I'll give you a couple statistics. 2016, wasn't that long ago, we had 2 fentanyl-related deaths in Riverside County. Only 2. Last year, according to the coroner's office, according to the sheriff, in 2021, we had over 500. And so the numbers are quite stunning. It's been doubling every year. And this substance, fentanyl, is so lethal that 2 milligrams are fatal to the human body. There are 5,000 milligrams in a teaspoon. And our law enforcement personnel from all agencies are seizing kilos and hundreds of pounds of this substance. It's pouring over our porous southern border. I've said that before publicly, and I get sometimes people come up to me and say, you shouldn't say that. People are going to get the impression that you're blaming another country. Look, I'm too old for this. I'm just going to tell you what's happening. It's pouring across our southern border. The federal government isn't doing anything about it, and they need to. It's a poison, and it's coming into all of our communities. And it's our children and nieces and nephews and our loved ones that are dying and being cut down. And that's just the reality of it. So in our county, we've led the state in prosecuting these fentanyl dealers for murder. We've taken a tough stand on that. I'll tell you, the reason why we're able to do that is because of our sheriff. Our sheriff reacted very quickly and has been a leader in the state in investigating fentanyl deaths as murders. And so the sheriff's department formed a task force. I'll let Chad Bianco tell you about that. But these cases are now being submitted to the DA's office that are investigated expertly, and we're able to file those cases as murders. Now, why is that important? We're not going to solve the fentanyl crisis through prosecution alone. We know that. We have to get the word out, but selective prosecution and taking a tough stand is part of the solution. People are talking about our approach, and more importantly, drug dealers are talking about our approach. And I know this because I've heard from those involved in the rehabilitation community saying at our group therapy sessions, what they're saying is, we can't be doing this in Riverside County anymore. That's what I want to hear. That's music to my ears. Number one would be don't do it, but if you can't do that, go do it somewhere else. And I don't wish this upon anybody, but my job is to protect the people of this county, and we're going to do that through the vigorous enforcement of the law. Now, because it's a legislative summit, we need legislation on fentanyl. I know that we probably have a snowball's chance in hell to get it out of our legislature because they don't want to put in any laws that increase punishments, but we're going to need this because this is not going to stop. It's going to keep getting worse, and you all elected officials are going to keep hearing about it, and they're going to ask you, what are we doing about it? And you can tell them what we're doing about it in our county, but eventually the state is going to have to get their act together and do something about it legislatively. What could we use legislatively? We could use a law that says that trafficking in fentanyl resulting in death, that we don't have to prove murder, that by itself is enough to hold someone accountable for an extended period of time in prison. Because the actual job that my prosecutors have of proving murder is quite difficult. There are a lot of barriers, a lot of hoops they have to jump through evidentiary-wise. And that is as it should be. Obviously, murder is one of the most serious crimes that we have. So we need a legislative fix to kind of help us with those gray area cases. All right? So let me move on to the second topic because you'll all get a chance to ask questions. So if you want to have me elaborate more on that, I can. But let's talk about homelessness. This is on everybody's mind. Homelessness in the last 10 years has proliferated. We've seen it. If you drive through LA County, I'll have a little bit more to say about LA County in a minute. If you drive through LA County, you see tent cities, looks like someplace you don't want to be or even visit, and we can't let that happen here in our county. So homelessness has proliferated primarily and exponentially after the passage of Proposition 47, but also AB 109 before that. So these legislative fixes from a decade ago, just to give you some sense, AB 109 was passed in 2012, so 10 years ago. Prop 47 was passed by the voters. It was the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, and it was passed in 2014. So those two pieces of legislation together have put us in the situation we are with regards to homelessness. Let me explain. Homelessness is primarily driven by two main factors: mental health and substance abuse, and a combination of the two. So it's very common that someone who's been on the street using hard drugs finds themselves with mental health issues. And so many of our homeless are suffering from these terrible scourges. And my heart goes out to them. I feel great compassion for people who are homeless. But if those are the root causes, then the state's effort thus far, by providing homes and building more housing, is not going to work, right? It's just logic. It's not going to work if what's driving it is substance abuse and mental health. Then a bunch of new homes is not going to do it. And by the way, the cost of these new homes are astronomical in California. It's not a sustainable solution. So recently, a new program. He called it the Care Corps. I want to talk about this because you may have heard about it. I did a town hall in Blythe a couple weeks ago, and somebody asked me a question. They said, "We want this new Care Corps. We can't wait to get it. It's going to help us with our homeless problem. How soon are we going to have it?" So a couple things. One, it's just been unveiled, and there's a lengthy period of public comment, so it's not coming anytime soon. The Care Corps solution essentially is almost like a mini conservatorship. So the idea is that the government can get a homeless person who's unable to care for himself or herself and have the court take some control of their life. So I have to say that, and I'm going to give the governor credit. I don't normally say nice things about the governor, to be quite honest with you, but I feel that I have to. I think he's on the right track. He said something very important. He said, we have to coerce the homeless to treatment. He's absolutely right about that. Absolutely right. That's what we used to do with drug court. In the old days, we used to have someone that would come in hopelessly addicted to drugs, and we had some leverage because they could go to jail for that. And we used to say to them, go get treatment and we'll dismiss all the charges. We're not trying to put people in jail, and long-term jail for drug addicts is probably not the best use of our resources. We all understand that. But now we have no leverage, and so they're just going to walk away. Here's the problem with the Report Act, and I brought my computer up here so I'll read you. There's a fact sheet that the governor put out. I've got it on my iPad here. I want to read you the problem with this so you're all aware. Number 9 of the fact sheet says, what if an individual does not participate in the court-ordered care plan? Because this is the million-dollar question. What do we do with people that are so-called housing resistant? This is a euphemism, housing resistant. It just means that homeless don't want to go into shelter. Why? Because the shelters don't let them use drugs. That's the hard truth. And so they go into a shelter for a day or two and then they're back out. And it's a terrible problem. So this is what the Care Corps says about that problem. I'm just going to read it to you. An individual who does not participate in the court-ordered care plan may be subject to additional court hearings. So there's a huge problem with the governor's plan. There's no consequences for walking away. And so we're going to have to modify this. So the governor left it open for some public comment. My office has submitted lengthy comment to the governor's office. I don't know if that will make any difference. We're going to try to work with the governor to make this better, but you have to have a consequence. And that's why I believe that the criminal courts have to be involved. Because ultimately, if someone walks away, we've got to find a way to have some incarceration. Maybe it's short term, maybe it's 3 days, maybe it's 5, maybe it's a week or 2, something that says if you walk away, there's going to be consequences that are not going to be pleasant. We have to do that, and we have to get people into the treatment that they need to start to put a dent into the homeless problem. All right, I know I'm probably already over time, but let me just finish up with trends in law enforcement and in crime. We are facing in California crime like we've never seen before, actually across the country that we've never seen before. In 2020, the murder rate, let's talk about murder, but crime is up in all categories. Murder rate was up nationwide 27%. In California, it was up 31% in 1 year. These are numbers we've never seen before. In the last 2 years, now I'm getting these statistics from the California Department of Justice and the Sheriff of LA County. The last 2 years, so 2020 and 2021, the murder rate in Los Angeles County went up 94%, a stunning 94%. That is unbelievable. We've never seen anything like that. Those same 2 years, 2020 and 2021, our homicide rate in Riverside County was down 16%. So you tell me, why we're two Southern California counties. Why? What's the difference? The difference is pretty simple. And I'm not trying to get political, but policy-wise, we've got to enforce the law. And in this county, we have a sheriff that enforces the law. Simple as that. He arrests people that break the law. We have a great sheriff. And we have police chiefs. Your police chief in Murrieta and across this county, we have police chiefs that do their job and enforce the law. I know it sounds simple, and you're probably sitting there thinking, can it be that simple? In large part, it is. And my office vigorously prosecutes those cases. And that's the job of your public safety, is to keep people safe and keep the crime rate down. For us, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We embrace concepts like Veterans Court, mental health court. We started a new homelessness court with the sheriff. So we are not a one-size-fits-all, lock everybody up. You know, sometimes we get accused in law enforcement of just trying to pad our stats for some reason. That we don't, because we don't get anything for doing that. But we're actually trying to bring the crime rate down for the people of this county. And it's a long-term project when you talk about crime prevention, but when people come and use a gun or gang crimes or prey upon children, they've got to go. They've got to go to prison. They've got to go to prison for a long time. I'm never going to apologize for that as your district attorney. I'm going to keep enforcing the law because it keeps our people safe, and that's what builds a thriving community. So I want to thank you all for listening to me rant. Appreciate everything that you're doing to support law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you for those uplifting remarks. No, that's exactly why we're here this morning. Our next speaker was elected sheriff, coroner, and public administrator of Riverside County in 2018. He's a 27-year veteran of the department. As sheriff, he serves as the chief law enforcement officer of Riverside County. Please welcome to the stage Sheriff Chad Bianco.
Good morning. Thank you for everyone for attending. Two things. I was with Mike this weekend, and that whole Dust Las Vegas thing is real. I woke up early this morning and just sat talking to my wife saying, God, do I sound alive? I really thought I'm going to die here. And it was horrible. The windy, hot, it was crazy. So he was telling you the truth. It was Vegas, and I was with him. I'm a witness. And then the second thing, Mike is a much better person than I am. I will never say anything good about the governor. All of you out there, business owners, leaders of business, leaders in the community, and we're here for a legislative summit. That's what we're calling this. That's the name of it. And for us, for Mike and I especially, for Chief Conrad, some of the legislature has failed us. And by failing us, they have failed you. And this has been ongoing for quite some time. And so the problem with all of this is from when we were all young, this is long going. This didn't happen in 2011. It didn't happen in 2014. That's the culmination of a plan put into effect that's been in motion for decades, if not 20s and 30s and 40s and 50 years, 60 years, 100 years. If you're a historical person, it was 1907 when it really started in this country. 1907. and now we're at the point where they put it into play. And when we were all young, what are the two things you couldn't talk about? Someone said it, politics and religion. You can't talk about politics and religion. Why? Why? Because they don't want you to. Why can law enforcement, why can I not talk about politics and religion? Religion affects my daily life, my religion anyway, and how I treat other people and how I really employ the people in my department and how we act and how we behave. There's ethical, moral values that come with religion, regardless of what religion it is. Why can I not talk about politics? Why can law enforcement people not talk about politics? You elected me. You keep telling me I'm a politician. I don't want to be. I never will refer myself as a politician, but I'm certainly elected, so why can't I talk about politics? I'm right in the middle of it. Politics is what is making it unbelievably difficult for me to do my job. My job is to keep you safe. If politics were not involved in anything, if they weren't concerned about law and order and everything else, I wouldn't have to talk about politics because it's basic common sense. You arrest the bad guys or gals, you put them in jail or prison, whatever the case may be, you rehabilitate if possible, and then you move on. The reality is you can't rehabilitate everyone. They don't want to be rehabilitated. Depending on the percentages you want to believe, there's 95, well, I'll say 95 just because it's a high number. This room is probably a little bit higher, it's probably 100%, but 95% of our population are great people. They're good people. They want to go to, they want to raise their kids, they want to raise their business, they want to make their businesses succeed, they want to take care of their families, they want to take care of their friends. They're good people. We are all good people, 95% of us. The other 5% are criminals and politicians. And those 5% care nothing about you. They care nothing about your business. They care nothing about your family. They care about themselves. That is what they care about. They care about themselves. On my way here, a news flash came across my phone, and I just read the headline, and it was the lieutenant governor in New York is arrested for bribery. And whatever, I don't know how much he took. He wanted contributions, campaign contributions, and in return, he was giving someone a $50,000 state grant. $50,000. In government world, that is nothing. Absolutely nothing. And he's taking bribes, campaign contributions for a $50,000 grant. So what do you think he's taking for $1 million grant? Or for a $5 million, $10 million, $18, $20, $40, $100 million grant? Because those are the grants that government really gives out. So what's he taking for those? Those are the politicians that are in it for themselves and do everything they can to stay in power. And they're the ones that are causing us all of the problems. So one of the things that Mike hit on, and he ruined my punchline, because I was going to tell you that I could, if this legislative session, if I could get something on the ballot in November, or if I could get them to pass something, and I was going to tell you that I have the solution, you just have to support me. And you all going to vote for it. It's going to be on the ballot, and it's called Safe Schools and Safe Streets. Everybody's going to vote for that, right? Who doesn't want safe schools and safe streets? So here's the problem. You already voted for that. You all voted for it. 68% of you voted for it. 68% of this room voted for safe schools and safe streets. That's all great, but you voted for safe schools and safe streets, and you didn't read the fine print because your government lies to you every single day. There is not one thing in Prop 47 that was named Safe Schools, Safe Neighborhoods, and Safe Streets Act. Not one thing made you safe, your neighborhood safe, your school safe, anything like that. Not one. It made, how many business owners in here? How many business owners that are victim of retail theft? So Prop 47 is what caused your retail theft. Prop 47 is, do you know that Prop 47, Prop 57, do you know that rape of an unconscious female, those laws, our legislature made that a non-violent crime? Child abuse is non-violent? How does that happen? Mike hit it on the head. The current legislative agenda is that absolutely no bill will be passed if it adds any type of punishment to any crime. The only bills that are getting passed through public safety committees are bills that let people out of jail early or take away consequences for their criminal behavior. That is a fact. That is a outspoken fact of our legislative bodies in public safety committees, in our hearings. They say it out loud. They say it out loud. Now, it's helping us. We have a problem with fentanyl. Dealers coming into the state, and I can't talk about it. I can't tell you that on January 10th of 2021, the inbound fentanyl went up 1,000%. 1,000%. Why? Because we had a new president that took away every support we had on the border to stop it coming in. And you can say people, you can say whatever it is you're talking about immigrants coming across and everything else. I don't care about that. That's not my job. That's the federal government's job. But what happened when that border was open is the drug dealers took complete advantage of that. And our drug seizures went up depending on the drug, 600, 800, 950% in 3 months. In 3 months. The first 2 months of this year, January and February, no, 3 months, I'm sorry. The first 3 months of this year, we've seized half of the fentanyl that we seized all of last year. We've seized much more fentanyl to kill every single resident in Riverside County. Just my department could kill every single person in Riverside County with fentanyl. And we cannot get a bill passed through the legislature that will increase the punishments for transporting fentanyl, for supplying fentanyl, for selling fentanyl. They want no part of it. No part of it, because it increases punishment. AB 109, all it did was let people out of prison. The goal of the current political agenda, because we can't talk about politics, and I'm telling you right now, this really isn't politics anymore. It's not about Republican and Democrat, because the Republican and Democrat of our youth is no longer. It's no longer. This is about a political ideology that is much more than Democrat and Republican. But years ago, the Democrat side decided that part of being a Democrat was you could never vote for anything other than something supported by another Democrat. You only vote for Democrats, you only support Democrats, and any bill that is put into the legislature, into any committee, unless there's a Democrat attached to it, it's not going to go through. Republican bills die in committee. That's a fact. There are people here that will tell you that. You don't have to listen to me. The problem with that is it is an ideology. It's not about politics. It's making things worse. It's eliminating prison. Everybody in here, you all have to believe that we need prisons, right? There are bad people that do not want to comply with laws. They are not the 95%. They are the percent that we need to protect you from. And the only way we can do that is if we have some place to put them. And the current governor's agenda, outspoken, he said it himself, was to close prisons. And he did it. And he used a pandemic, I don't even want to get into the whole dynamics of that, but he outwardly said he will take advantage of this situation for his agenda. He used those exact words. And he did. Does anybody know why we are still under a state order? We're still under a state order for an emergency order. It apparently didn't apply to the Super Bowl and the game before that. But we are all still under the governor's thumb for an emergency order. He has complete power over this state that he gave to himself. There's a reason for that. He wants to keep imposing this. So the interesting thing, and the reason why I'm telling you all this is because you have to start caring about politics. You have to start talking about politics. You have to start convincing other people. And I don't want you to talk about Democrat and Republican. I want you to talk about politics and what laws and rules and everything else that are supposed to benefit us, not an individual person and not an ideology that we all don't agree with. There's no one in here, when I explain Prop 47 to any of you, there is no one in here that would support it. The governor himself doesn't support it. The attorney general on an open mic, they were making fun of me this morning about open mics, be careful of what I say. They didn't realize I don't care what I say. The attorney general, who is supposed to be responsible for law and order in California, has said that Prop 47 is a disaster and it needs to be fixed. But yet, why isn't it fixed? He doesn't have the power. The governor doesn't have the power. It's an agenda because they're trying to close prisons. They want all prisons closed. He's already closed 3. They will never open again. Force them all to us, to county jails. Then I have to house them. So that means I have to let lesser criminals out to house the state inmates. It's a complete disaster. But none of you know that, right? Some of you may if you've heard either one of us talk. But that's because we can't talk about politics. They've convinced us that we can't talk about politics and we can't talk about religion. And we bought off on it. But it's time that we start caring about what's going on in our community. We start caring about public safety. We start caring about all these things so we can fix it. The homeless population, Mike hit on it perfect. The 3 things that concern us most right now, my personal opinion, I think it's Mike's too: homeless, fentanyl, and rising crime. We are doing a pretty good job here, much better than the rest of the state. One of the things that when Mike and I, well, Mike was in before me, but when I took office and Mike meets with the DAs, all of the DAs in the state routinely, and I meet with all of the sheriffs in the state routinely. The first meeting I went to, talking about, I'm new, I'm the new guy, I got to meet everybody and figure out how everything's going on. And I learned very, very quickly that the relationship that Mike and I have, which is basically based on a lifetime of working together in our adult lives, but it's a mutual respect for everything. I mean, his priorities are the same as mine. And so we have a natural friendship. But then we're in law enforcement. So why wouldn't we be the same? I have to arrest them, he has to prosecute them. We have to get along here. And what I realized and what Mike and I talked about was there was no other DA and sheriff in the state that even liked each other. It goes back to what I said earlier about the wrong people are getting in there. They're getting in there not for you. Politics isn't about you anymore. It's not about government is not about taking care of us. They're getting it in for themselves. I'm not getting anything out of this other than the joy. I drive a black, on the way here, I pulled somebody over and gave them a ticket because they didn't know it was a cop car. That is joy. That is joy. That's what I get out of this. I enjoy keeping you safe. When people say thank you to me for something that has to do with law enforcement, that makes my day and it makes me want to do it again. If it was for me, I would be retired, I would be living in a mountaintop somewhere, and no one would be around me and no one would ever talk to me. That would be, if it was for me. It's not. I thoroughly enjoy this, but our politicians are in it for them. And so when you have a DA and a sheriff that don't talk, that don't get along, that DA and that sheriff are now in it for the right reasons. They're in it for their own personal agenda, their own egos, or their own something. But it's not mutually for you what you elected us to do. So I think that as you can ask lots of questions as we go on, but those are 3 issues that I would hope you would hit on, and we'll answer all the questions that we can about that. But if there's something else that you want to know, of course, all 3 of us will be able to answer any of the questions. Homelessness, keyword homeless. We will never, ever fix the homeless problem, the homeless issue, if we keep calling it homeless. It has absolutely nothing to do with homeless. They all have homes. They all get kicked out of them because they have drug abuse problems that led to mental health problems, or vice versa. And until we fix the substance abuse and the mental health issues of all of these people that are on the street, we are not going to get them back to their homes. Words mean things. Words mean things. And our politicians that are working against us know that wholeheartedly. Words mean things. We can't call them, I mean, you can't even call them homeless anymore. They're previously housed or whatever the heck it is. You know, they're not parolees anymore. They're not criminals anymore. They're justice involved. What is that supposed to mean? Our legislatures, I mean, there are good ones that are actually in this room. They actually spend their time up there coming up with resolutions that forbid us from calling them parolees. Does everybody in here know what a parolee is? I know what a parolee is. Everybody knows what a parolee is. You get out of prison, you go on parole. You're a parolee. But we can't say that word anymore because it's demeaning. It's demeaning. They're not criminals. You all are the cause of their criminality. If you weren't so selfish and just gave up your stuff, they wouldn't have to steal it from you. Words mean things, and we have to start paying attention to the things we say and how we deal with issues and how we deal with crime, because it is plain and simple. If you ask a 5-year-old or if you ask an 80-year-old woman, what is my job? What's the job of a cop? They will both tell you the same thing. Arrest bad guys and put them in jail. Put the bad guys in jail. That's the answer. But in the middle, we get all mucky-muck and we don't know what we're supposed to be doing, and we have to be careful of what we say because we can't offend anyone. And that's brought us to this point. So I hope that by the time you leave and by the time, or even in your own lives, I hope you're fed up with the things that are going on. And I'll close by saying this. There is one law that the legislature is pushing through, and it will pass. I guarantee it will pass. I've been told that it won't. I guarantee you it will pass. So while they're taking away, making things not crime, making things, we can't get laws for raping an unconscious woman. We can't get that increased. We can't get penalties increased for committing a crime with a gun. We can't get penalties increased for theft, for stealing all of your stuff. They just flat out refuse. We can't get penalties increased for murdering someone with fentanyl. That's a no-no. But this is what's going to pass. They're going to pass a law this session that's going to make it a crime for me. I am going to be guilty of a crime, specifically sheriff. They might as well have said Sheriff Bianco, but they left off Bianco and just said sheriff. It is going to be a crime for me not to enforce the governor's orders. Punishable by jail time. I go to jail for that. But we can't send gang members to jail because they're victims. So the next time he wants your businesses closed, the next time he tells you you have to wear a mask, and I would rather go out and arrest real criminals, I'm going to be could be arrested. I don't know who, hopefully it's not one of my guys. But they're going to make that a crime punishable by jail time for that. That's where we are. So if you don't think you have to start getting involved in politics, we are doomed. Because that 95% has to take it back from the 5. So thank you all for coming here for this, and we'll be open to as many questions as you want. Is that right?
We'll take that. Thank you, Chief. It's more good news there, certainly. I think a couple of good takeaways from that, though, just to riff for a minute, but get involved in politics. And what's something that we've been telling new realtors for years? Get involved in politics or get out of the business, because it's just that simple. You know, you may not want to get involved with politics, but politics constantly wants to get involved with you. And so it's absolutely critical what the chief said. And as business owners, one of the avenues that you have, I mentioned earlier, the Southwest California Legislative Council. And, you know, the critical part of that is that as business owners, and particularly small business owners, you have neither the time nor really the know-how to effectively engage with your politicians. We're lucky in this area. We've got some good ones that are right here locally who will help you. But a lot of folks don't know that. And so get involved through the chamber with the Southwest California Legislative Council because SWCLC is the voice for small business in Southwest Riverside County. So again, good points on that, Chief. We really appreciate that. Our next speaker, we're running a little bit late, but our next speaker, whoops, that says our first speaker. I need to get to our next speaker. Where are you at, Tony? Okay. Our final speaker this morning before we go to our panel was sworn in as Murrieta's Chief of Police in March of 2021. So he's been around just about a year now, so congratulations on that. He's still with us, so that's good. He believes strongly in collaborative approach to enforcement. He works with all of the stakeholders in the community, both internal and external. He believes the police's primary mission, keeping the community safe, while building confidence with residents and business owners through a community police partnership model. Please welcome Chief Anthony Conrad.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I feel honored to represent the city of Murrieta, and I don't know if I have anybody else except for our fine seven-member colleagues here from Murrieta. I will say, tough act policy put me third after the law and order, the best game in the state, and then the sheriff actually pulled the traffic stop this morning. So great. All right. Anytime I get in front of a group, I always want to brag Murrieta PD, but I also want to brag a little bit today about what we're doing in the county. A little bit of a message of hope for you all. Let's start with RCOPS. So RCOPS is the association of all 18 chiefs here in this county, and of course the DA and the sheriff are members. And I've never seen a group, I've been the chief for 1 year now, so I've never seen a group collaborate quite like RCOPS. Very much all in lockstep with each other, great communication, meeting every other month, and then having a phone call every other week, where basically all the chiefs, the sheriff, and the DA are on the phone talking about all these issues that you've just heard about over the last 30 minutes. So we all are very much in line with law and order, protecting all of you. So that's probably something that's not happening in every county up and down the state. I guarantee it's not happening in Northern California. So that's a really good thing. We talked a little bit about AB 109, or we hit on that a little bit. So we, when realignment occurred back in 2011, some funds came down to the county level, and we have 15 officers and deputies throughout this county that keep those folks that were actually released per realignment. They keep them in check. So for 2021, we actually searched and contacted over 3,000 of those people in the county. Took 140 guns off the street in 2021, rearrested 25% of those folks, and you should know the vast majority of those guns that we took off the street were ghost guns. Unserialized, untraceable guns. There's a lot of reason why those are out there, but the reality is those need to come off the street, and they're in the hands of these folks that were realigned. I also want to hit a little bit about, a little bit on CBAT. So we've talked about homelessness, behavioral health issues in the county. Our county has 15 teams where we actually put a therapist in the car with the officer and the deputy, and they're contacting these homeless people. And for sure, as you can see in what we've talked about this morning, most of those folks have major behavioral health issues. So it's good to get a therapist in front of them as opposed to just a cop or a deputy, and see if we can actually solve that problem. So your county's got 15 of those teams working on your behalf. We have, you've probably maybe heard of flock cameras, license plate readers. In this county, we have almost 700 of those. So what's great about this system is this is not a confidentiality issue. This is just all out in public. There's no right to privacy, and that data is gathered, and all of the chiefs and the sheriff have decided where to put these cameras. So I work very closely with Temecula and Menifee, and then we track where these criminals are coming and going, and we put those facts, that data together for cases, and it helps us to prosecute people. So a very robust system of license plate readers tracking all of these criminals that are rolling around the county of Riverside. Let's talk Let me talk a little bit about, anytime I get in front of a community group, I always want to clarify maybe a piece of fake news, right? So use of force. You guys go home every single night when you're done working and you see on the news, law enforcement use of force, things that that basically are reporting that cops are using force all over the place. Well, I just reviewed 2021 stats at Murrieta, and we arrested 2,600 people. We used force 69 times. So we didn't use this massive amount of force on the people other than what you might see on the news. And of the 69, 28 of those incidents, my officers were actually injured. And over half of those incidents, the suspect was under the influence of a narcotic. So those are the things, that's the real news. Those are the stats out of Murrieta, probably very consistent across the county. So our officers, for the most part, and our deputies, are contacting hundreds of thousands of people, arresting thousands of people. Very rarely do they use force, and when they do it appropriately. So that's a bit of fake news that you probably hear on the news every night. That's just not the facts here in Riverside County. Challenges for law enforcement today, you should know. Your local police officer has kind of a different stance, the way they look at their career today. Those of us that have been in the career field for 20, 25 years, pushing 30 years, definitely look at it different. But I know our officers feel that the news probably paints them as people that lie, they may be racist, they're not accountable, very heavy-handed, there's a code of silence. Nothing could be farther from the truth. These are some of the finest people that work in this industry. Our officers, our deputies, those that serve you in this county, they're just great people. They live in your community, they want to serve you, and those are the challenges that they face today. I said I wanted to brag a little bit about Murrieta, so I have 102 sworn officers in my department. 50 of them live in the city of Murrieta, and the other 52 either live in Wildomar, Temecula, Menifee, or a county area that touches the city. So all 102 of my sworn police officers are within 5-10 minutes from the station, and almost half of them actually live in the city. They're an educated group. We turned 30 this year in Murrieta on August 1st. We started in 1992, and those original 24 officers that started at Murrieta PD, very proactive. We continue to be proactive today in Murrieta. I have a policy. We talk a lot about watering down felonies to misdemeanors. We have a policy that's been in place for probably over 10 years that all misdemeanors do go to jail. So we don't cite in the field unless a sergeant authorizes that. That's actually a department policy. So again, very proactive and pushing that proactivity to keep crime down in the city of Murrieta. So, and last but not least, with what occurred in New York this morning, I know it's developing. I just want to hit all of you, our business owners. So, two things you should know about that. Number one, we know for sure the gun didn't act alone, right? It was somebody that had probably violent behaviors, a criminal. We'll see how that pans out. And number two, all of our departments in this county teach active shooter. So that's something that you as business owners should take advantage of. I know it goes in lulls, but when we see it spike, please call your local law enforcement and let us come out and teach you a little bit about active shooter and what you guys can do to protect your business. So looking forward to questions. Thank you for having me.
Terrific. Hopefully one of the takeaways you've heard this morning is that something that's critical in our county, which doesn't happen in a lot of places, is the fact that our folks do talk with one another and they work with one another. And, unlike some areas like Los Angeles where the police chief is at odds certainly with the district attorney, and, you can arrest him, but if you don't prosecute him and jail him, you get absolutely nowhere. And I think in Riverside County, we're in an extremely fortunate position that from local police to the county sheriff, right up through our district attorney, we've got a coordinated effort, which is one of the reasons why Riverside County is a nice, safe place to be. What else can be done to protect our residents, and especially our younger folks who are probably the most at risk on this because they don't, it's just kind of a fun thing, and they don't know that they can get fentanyl as a part of something else that they may be taking just for fun. So how do we address those issues? I'll start with you, Ms. Hestrin, and proceed down the line.
So as I mentioned when I spoke, that the prosecution part of it is not going to solve the problem. It's only one part of a larger effort, and the other parts are prevention and education. So we have a crime prevention unit at the DA's office, and I've got deputy DAs and victim advocates that go out into the community and give presentations of fentanyl. And what we're telling people is that it's not just the fentanyl that's pouring into the country. It's one other thing that's making it so deadly. The drug trafficking organizations and the cartels are now making counterfeit pills. These pills look just like pharmaceutical products. They're the same color, they have the same markings. These organizations, these criminal organizations, have gone to the extent of buying these pill-making machines, and they're pressing out pills that too look exactly like products that were made in a lab, in a approved lab. And so here's what's happening. All across the country, young people are going to a party, and someone's giving them a pill. And you've got someone who's young, 15, 16, 17 years old. Their judgment is not, fully developed, and they're looking at a pill and it looks like it's okay. Maybe someone got it from their medicine cabinet, and their trusted friend says it's okay, this will make you feel good or make you relax or help you sleep, and they're taking the pill and they're not waking up. That's what's happening. And so it's happening to people who've never tried drugs before. It's happening to people who are not addicts, and people are being cut down in the prime of their life. And so we have to have conversations with our loved ones. Here's what you have to say. Here's what I've said to my own kids. If ever there was a time where drug experimentation was safe, and I don't believe there was, but if ever there was a time when it was somehow okay, or this idea that kids are going to experiment with drugs, ladies and gentlemen, those days are over. They have to be over, and society at large hasn't realized that yet. We will, unfortunately, but we've got to get the word out. Let's not wait until these numbers keep spiraling out of control. Have conversations with your loved ones. If you want to have someone from my office come out and give a presentation, we'd be happy to do that.
I think, Chief, anything to add?
Yes, I think one of the things that you mentioned earlier about the dangers of it and everything else and the exposure. So we have had to, all of my deputies now they carry around Narcan. Narcan is an antidote basically for an opiate. And we have had to issue them to all of the deputies. They carry it around. We are using it on a daily basis. So you talk about the exposure and the danger, and you mentioned that other agencies have been involved. We've had 4 instances where deputies have become stricken because of fentanyl. One was yesterday, and the deputies went to a man-down call. There was someone slumped over in a vehicle, 2 people slumped over in a vehicle. They get there, they give them the Narcan. They know what it is. It's an overdose, poisoning, whatever they are doing, whatever they had in their mind. And it was fentanyl that had caused them to be out. So we revived them. In the investigation, the deputy he wasn't able to talk. The other deputy there heard him as he's talking. It just stopped. His tongue wasn't working anymore. He said he just got tunnel vision. He knew he was going out. He had the wherewithal to administer Narcan to himself. He administered a dose of Narcan. He sat down. He said he told his partner that he was going out. That deputy used his own Narcan to revive him more. They transported him, and everything came out fine. But had we not had that, we would have lost the deputy. This is the danger for parents. This is the danger for school administrators, for everyone. We had one instance, and we can't prove it. We just have to. We're investigators, and we have to look at all of the facts and how it happened and what the outcome is. But a family called us because their child was out. We go there. Dad is doing CPR. We administer Narcan, tons of Narcan. AMR gets there, administers more Narcan. Transport the juvenile. Luckily, revived and was fine. But Mom goes with the ambulance. Dad stays home with the other kids. Dad's dead. Dad died from fentanyl overdose. And the only thing we can figure is from giving CPR to the child, and she had aspirated, it killed Dad. That's the danger of fentanyl and how tiny, how minuscule. The CDC, we talk about the drugs, Fentanyl is a synthetic opiate that is dirt cheap. Dirt cheap. So now we're finding it, they're making, and if you all don't know, your schools are teaching kids, Mike mentioned on this about there's never a time, if the time is don't do drugs, it's now. They teach responsible drug use, not no drug use. We don't say no to drugs anymore. The DARE programs are non-existent. It's responsible drug use. There is no such thing as responsible drug use with fentanyl. They're making pills to look like a Vicodin, or to look like Percocet, or to look like a Valium, or an ecstasy pill. And all of those things in and of itself, one pill is not going to do anything to you other than give you some type of effect of that pill. If you add alcohol, it's going to do it. But they're making it's expensive. A Vicodin is expensive. An M3 pill, from Mexico, but it's a pharmaceutical pill and it's oxycodone. And for the black market, they might have to pay like $1 for one of those pills, and they're going to sell it for 10. But if you come out of fentanyl, you can get 20 of them for $1, and then still sell it for $2. The CDC has said recently that 40% of the pills that we are seizing contain a lethal dose of fentanyl. 40%. This is a disaster in the making that we don't know about. Some of our problems that we have is the education system, the education point of making you all aware, making our kids aware of the dangers of fentanyl. And then the dealers, the cartels are now, because it's cheap, because it is so highly addictive, they're putting it in every drug. We have found it in cocaine. In heroin, it's an automatic. It's a cutting agent. You put it in heroin, you make heroin stronger. But we're finding it in cocaine, methamphetamine, marijuana. Marijuana is not physically addicting to your body. Maybe a little psychologically addicting. You think you have to, whatever it is. But it's a little bit more like alcohol. Alcohol is more physically addicting than marijuana. Marijuana is psychologically addicting. But they are putting fentanyl in marijuana, traces of it in the marijuana, because now your body has to have it. And you're going to buy it from that same dealer because they've got better weed. And we're having people overdose or get poisoned. That's where the term poisoning from fentanyl comes from, because they don't know they're taking it. They think they're smoking a joint, and it's got fentanyl in it, and then now all of a sudden they're dead. So it's a huge education piece that really the public needs to be aware of. And we're still at the bottom of it, trying to figure out how we're going to get the word out to everybody. And the media won't help us. I've been standing right next to him at a called press conference where we had Mike and I and another EA and other law enforcement officials, and we're talking about the dangers of fentanyl. Wasn't even reported. Wasn't even reported. They showed up just to go through the motions, but it wasn't reported.
Chief, any
The
last word?
only thing I would add is what makes it so dangerous is this started actually many years ago, just overprescribing of oxy, right? So our kids are very used to taking oxy for a motorcycle injury or whatever it might be, right? So, but now it's a totally different world that we live in. So we can't overemphasize enough the education component. I have an SRO at every high school, a school resource officer at every middle school, and we're just preaching it every single day. This is not a time that you can experiment with anything remotely close to a pill, and now we're seeing it in marijuana. So a lot of people ask me, why would the drug dealers want to kill their clients? It's just because it's a highly addictive substance that they're adding to it, and the reality is they don't have the chemists to press these pills properly, and this is just the fallout from that, right? So it's a huge issue, can't be overstated enough. We want the media to cover it, but if you can take anything away from this today, is have that conversation with your kids. Have it every single day. I raised a young man in Murrieta who's at college right now. He's 20. We went through this conversation, and I've talked to every one of his friends until I'm blue in the face. Like, you can never, ever experiment with anything, especially the pills that are floating around right now. They are killing, like the DA said, people in the prime of their lives. It's a really, really sad thing. So I'm glad we brought topic up.
This is a question for DA Hestrin. Mike, at least 2 of your more progressive compatriots in Los Angeles and San Francisco are currently being recalled for their own progressive policies. Yet these same people actually told the voters what they were going to do before they were elected and are simply following what, in their opinion, they were elected to do. We'd actually extended an offer to Los Angeles DA George Gaston to appear on the panel with us today to present his point of view, but we received no response. So lacking a point-counterpoint opportunity, we'll simply ask for your point on what the impact has been on communities experiencing these prosecutorial approaches.
So the progressive prosecutor approach is one based on ideology, and ultimately it's based on fantasy. It's not, what they're selling is this idea that the criminal justice system is corrupt, that it's broken, and it is broken, but not in the way that they're saying. They're saying that for years, police and prosecutors arrested and prosecuted people to pad their staff, so racist police and racist prosecutors. But the reality is that for all its faults, our criminal justice system is the best in the world. And again, it's not perfect. We constantly have to be reforming and trying to make it more fair and protect people's rights that are accused. I 100% agree with all of that. But to turn around and say, we're not going to enforce the law. So my colleague in Los Angeles, George Gaston, his first day in office, he put out a memo and he gave a list of all the things that he would no longer enforce. And I want you to think about that for a second. He's not a legislature of one. I'm not an emperor. I wasn't elected to decide what laws of the people that pass through the representatives, what laws I will and will not enforce. There's a stunning arrogance in that behavior. And the result of that are no longer a mystery. So George Gaston, in a very perverse and dangerous way, has done us all a favor. Because, and so the other progressives around the country, the favor, of course, and I say that tongue in cheek, because what we're seeing is the stacks unfold. Every city that attacks a prosecutor, crime goes through the roof, and people get killed and hurt, and and it's the very people in communities that those progressive prosecutors say they're trying to make the system more equitable. It's black and brown folks who are being victimized by criminals and want to be protected by the system. It's not an unreasonable request by the citizens of this state, this country. If your government can't protect you, why do we have government at all? Tell me that. If government must protect the citizens that are in place, and always remember something. We have this grand experiment in our form of government in self-rule, the people rule. And so you're gonna have to stand up and take back the sovereignty that you've all had all along. And it's time that we do that.
The next question is for all three of you. I'll start with Sheriff Bianco. Just a couple days ago, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal titled America's Shoplifting Epidemic. We've seen coverage of smash and grabs in high-end stores across the country, carjacking and road rage incidents. CPS claims their loss of 200% in the past 2 years. All immigration has been close to so far as the San Francisco. National Federation of Statistics and Shoplifting costs an average of $700,000 for $1 billion in sales in 2020. You can actually do a Google search, starting with how much, and one of the top 2 responses is going to be, how much can I legally steal in California? And that's referencing, of course, the $950 threshold. That is, if you steal less than $950 worth of stuff, it's simply a misdemeanor and really not even worth the store pursuing. How can we reverse this alarming trend? We'll start with Sheriff Bianco.
There's a whole lot of people that have to not be in government. So this is a big problem, and earlier DA Hestrin mentioned about Governor Newsom coming out and saying how he's going to address the homeless issue. Why is he doing that now? It's been for years. It's an election. He came out and he said that. There's absolutely no teeth on it. Within 10 minutes after that press conference where he said that, law enforcement was on a call with the governor's office, and they were explaining the whole process. And they came out and said, we have absolutely no idea. We don't know we don't know when it's going to start. We don't know who it's going to affect. We don't know how we're going to get it done. We don't know anything, but we said it. That's all it was lip service. And so this issue, this 950, where you make people laugh about, how much am I stealing so I don't get in trouble. That is reality. When they go into Home Depots, when they go into Targets, when they go into places like that, the first thing they steal is a calculator. And they walk around with the calculator, adding up the items that they're stealing. And when we stop them, the first thing they usually say is, here's the calculator, it's under $950. That's the reality. That's the reality that Prop 47 caused. The government caused this. And now the government, Governor Newsom, a couple of months ago, he proposed he's going to fix it for everybody because Target is leaving the state. Kmart's are gone. Other businesses, retail businesses are leaving the state, and the retail industry was putting serious pressure on the legislature and the governor to fix these theft issues. That we have theft rings that go around stealing from all of your businesses, keeping it under that threshold. And so the governor, knowing that he caused it, knowing that Prop 47 is the cause of this, it would be easy to fix that part. It would be easy to take back Prop 47. It would be easy for the legislature to lower that back down to 400, which it was before. They refused to do it. Instead, the government created problem. The governor holds this big press conference with the Los Angeles chief of police and all these chiefs of police behind their props, saying that he's going to fix the problem. And he gave $250 million to fix the retail theft problem, and he gave it to the Highway Patrol. The Highway Patrol doesn't enforce criminal behavior. They have absolutely nothing to do with retail theft. So he created a problem. Now he's coming to you with a solution that really isn't a solution. We have to get these people out that are causing our problems, that refuse to fix our problems. And then education, and whether or not you pay attention to what you're voting for. We voted for Prop 47 unanimously. It was big time. We all voted for it because we were lied to. In 2020, we thought we were going to repeal it. It was 2021. It was Prop 20. We had Prop 20 on the ballot that was going to repeal all of the bad parts of Prop 47, and you all voted against it. Not because you didn't want it fixed, but you only read the headline. And the headline didn't tell you what was in the bill. We have to be involved. We have to start paying more attention to what Mike said earlier. If the government is not helping us, then we have to fix the people that are ruining government.
Chief, I know City of Murrieta has an excellent social media department, and you're posting on there all the time about the people that you say parking lot looking at night, or people walking out with a variety of goods under the coat and so forth. I think that promises a lot of recent work educating the community. But what else can you do in the city to kind of put a crimp in these folks that are doing the smash and grabs and just walking out with a bunch of goods?
And meetings like this, meeting with the chamber, talking to our business owners, having that relationship is very important. The social media aspect that you talked about, Gene, is really our way to educate the community. I talked a little bit earlier about our cops, and we have a very robust website that we've been building that I think is going to get a ton of attention. And I would encourage all people on that website and look at the election fields, what they vote for. Because the common thing you're hearing here is that read the headline, you vote for maybe perhaps we can give you a source of information and you can make an educated decision on what you should and shouldn't be voting for, and our cops is a place to go on that. I think the other thing we need to do is what I do here is I try to be officers very motivated. Stay in your lane. You'll make a lot. What you do is you do attend. We have really stuff we talked about how are we discussed it, and I think overall in our county, you see this on the news. And I think all other things you have on Riverside County gone along to stop a little bit doesn't mean it can't come up, but you're seeing all the stuff for the most part in lawsuits. So.
One thing, follow up to that, one thing I think you thought, and I think it went a long way, was everybody published shots. Doesn't who had done something during previous week to tell themselves your attention and nothing good happens after midnight. Just, it was a wonderful feeling when you continue that.
However, we are investigating out in Murrieta constituents to see that we're taking a proactive approach to it. I will say the weekly roundup, there was a lot of data that criminals out of our town to some extent. It's just not something you really see your face about 160,000 followers. So that was make it more to do so you can see as much from us. But that was something that we were doing and very popular.
That was very correct of him to establish and they because we're working, the narrative was you guys are doing it. So we prove that we are, and we're stopping retail theft, so we're stopping the nighttime burglaries and everything else. And we're telling people, look, these are people that are committing these crimes. We're arresting them and we're putting them in jail. The legislature very quickly made it illegal for us to post pictures of the people that we arrest because it's.
Yeah, I really push the narrative to my officers that you are victim advocates. That's what you are, right? You're not defense attorneys. You have to have a certain level of empathy, and my officers do, and I know the deputies in this county and other officers do. But the reality is that we're there to protect victims, and that's the lane we stay in. We let everything else kind of just play out how it does. So.
One thing we haven't discussed or really heard much about this morning, and I know our porous southern border plays a role, and I think you mentioned, Chief, about the drugs flowing over the border and so forth, and folks coming in that are contributing to the crime problem. But something we haven't discussed on that is human trafficking, and I know that's been an issue in Riverside County in the past, and I'm wondering, we'll start with you, Mr. Hestrin, about if you can just address that briefly and let us know where we stand on that.
So human trafficking is a huge problem. It's a growing problem. Once again, though, I think our county has done pretty well. Under the sheriff's leadership, he started a anti-human trafficking task force, and then other agencies come on that task force, including my office. And so we work together. And the thing about human trafficking is that in the past, the organizations and individuals that did this terrible crime would hop around to different jurisdictions. So they might, be trafficking humans for sexual purposes in Los Angeles, and then they close up shop and they come over to Riverside County, and they're only here for a week or so, and maybe there's young girls that are trapped in this lifestyle. They're being trafficked, they're being sold into sexual slavery essentially, and then they close up shop and they head to another county. And law enforcement was always, kind of behind the eight ball, kind of day late and dollar short, to so to speak. But I think that the task force and the regional approach that's now being taken has made a big difference. And so we are working hard. It's, like I said, it's a growing problem. But I'll tell you, in this county, we take a very hard line. When we get those individuals, we send them to prison for decades. And so, again, I think that's a crime that needs to be heavily punished. If you talk about trafficking or enslaving another human being, there really isn't anything more despicable or evil than that, especially when you're talking about young women, young girls, and oftentimes young men as well.
Sure.
Yeah, we do a very good job with our human trafficking team. So human trafficking, just for basic terms, is someone benefiting financially from the labor or the sex of another person. And where we see it is we do have people that are smuggled across the border from many different countries for the labor. Particularly for us, it's with marijuana grows. So we have like Chinese nationals that were smuggled through Mexico, Middle Eastern nationals that are smuggled through Mexico that were brought here just to work marijuana grows. The opposite side is the sex trade. The sex trade, if you don't know, the absolute #1 industry in the world is sex. #1 industry in the world is sex. And within that, when you break it all down, the #1 money-making part of that industry is child sex. And so that's what we're up against when we're trying to find these victims of human trafficking. It's not so much that while we want to find the person responsible and we want to hold them accountable, the deputies are seriously trying to rescue these young men and women that are being victimized by forced sexual acts. And that's another one of the things that the legislator is trying to take away from us, in that we can no longer, they want it to be easy for us to contact someone that we believe is in prostitution and ask them where they are. It makes no sense. I mean, we seriously are there for those people, for those victims, to try and rescue them. And the reality is that sometimes it's hard because they're being drugged, they're being coerced, they're being manipulated over a period of time with money and emotional support. And it's an investigation to get them out of it. It's one of the lengthiest investigations that we have in law enforcement. And the task force that we have is really the only reason we're able to combat that, because that's their only job. It takes months and months and months and months, sometimes a year, to bring one criminal charge against a person that is responsible for that human trafficking. It's a very lengthy process. It's a very emotional process of earning that victim's trust. So it's something that we've had to put substantial resources toward, and without that collaborative effort of the prosecutors wanting to help and us wanting to do the right thing, it would be impossible. But it's something that we seriously have to be concerned with. And it's not, when you say human trafficking, you think that, people are being brought somewhere. Well, they could be your kids. We're finding our own kids here that are dual runaways. They're not really running away. They're being kidnapped or coerced or whatever it is, and then drugged for a week or 2 weeks. And in that period, they've had sex maybe 1,000 times in a week, in 2 weeks. And then they dump them off back at home, and mom and dad just think that their kids are back, and they think they may have a drug problem or whatever it is, but they're being trafficked. And it's happening in our own neighborhoods. It's a serious thing that we have to do with them.
Chief?
I go to a symposium every year where we bring up either a sex or labor traffic victim to speak. Very powerful. Listening to that, it's such a difficult crime to investigate and prosecute. But when you sit there and listen to one of these victims, you understand how huge it is. Not just locally, nationally, it's a global problem, right? And I think in our county, putting the task force together, we're doing everything that we can to combat trafficking, but it is a massive issue. So.
Can I add one thing? Absolutely. So there's a newer aspect of trafficking that we have hit upon in Riverside County, and that is the cyber aspect. So traffickers are online and they're grooming our children. And so last summer of 2020, we started a new task force. We get a little task force now in Riverside County because we do a lot of it. But we started a new one called Riverside Child Exploitation Team. And this one's run by the Bureau of Investigation in my office. But again, all the agencies have come on that team, including the sheriff, including many police departments. And what they do is they patrol cyberspace. So they're online looking for basically traffickers and child predators that are grooming children to engage in this lifestyle. And we've made hundreds of arrests in that. So we're proactive. So essentially, I'll just tell you, we've got investigators online posing as children. And you should see hundreds of people from all over the country line up to come to Riverside County to have sex with these children. And when they get here, they're arrested and they're prosecuted. And so, again, that's another way that we're fighting back, because we're proactive, we're online, and we're going to continue to do that. It's basically undercover work, but it's a newer aspect. You know, I was a child of the 70s, and my parents said when they would tell me, you know, go play, get lost, get on your bike, and don't come back till dinner. They would always tell me, watch out for people in vans and don't take candy from strangers, right? I mean, we won't remember that. Those people in vans are not in vans anymore. They're online, and they're in the room. They're in our rooms because our kids have these powerful computers that we call telephones, and they're alone in their room. The predators are with them, so just be aware.
I kind of mentioned that before. It's grooming. They are grooming these kids. It's no different than any type of child molestation. It takes sometimes days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months of grooming to get that child comfortable with that person to where they believe they love them and they're going to help them and shower them with gifts and money and everything else. And then all of a sudden they're on a street somewhere, or they're just being delivered. So he kind of hit on it. But in my deputy time, when I was a cop, prostitution and drug sales, you went and found the drug house, and then we hit that drug house, and we could do reverse things and everything else. Prostitution was on certain street corners or certain areas of town. It's no longer like that. We all have a computer in our pocket, and that's where it comes from. Drug dealers, the number one place to buy drugs is Instagram. And then the dealer delivers it to you, because they don't want us to know where their house is. So it's all delivered. Prostitution is all delivered to you now. It's no longer a certain hotel. It's no longer a certain street corner. It's in your phone, and they come to you. And we are having to adapt. You know, he says task forces. Task forces, if you hear anybody on a task force, that's the greatest thing in law enforcement, because it means that multiple people are collaborating on the same issue, where Mike would not have the resources to have this team himself. I might not have the resources to have the team myself. Tony might not have the resources, but together, now we have a group of investigators that's all working on this issue. But individually, we couldn't do it.
It's not something that you see the first time I saw the presentation from Mike's team. Of course, my city, I consider it very safe. And then I carved that out on the map and started looking at the numbers, and it was mind-boggling to me, a 27-year law enforcement veteran. So we placed somebody on that team immediately. And that's the beauty of the task force model, is that we're collaborating, we're bringing those resources together and doing everything we can as a county. So it's a huge issue. You'd be surprised how big it is.
Back in 2019 is where Mike and I became involved in the fentanyl issue. December 2019 is when it actually happened. January, February of 2020 is when we met with the parents of kind of like the poster child of the fentanyl poisoning crisis. And 21-year-old straight-A student couldn't sleep at night. She went on Snapchat and got what she thought was going to be a Percocet, or it was Percocet, so she could sleep. It was delivered to her door. It was not Percocet, it was nothing but fentanyl, and she died off Snapchat. That's how she got it delivered to her house. We're in a different world for trafficking in drugs than we were 15 years ago.
Here's a question for Sheriff and also for Chief Conrad. I'll start with the Sheriff. Your predecessor's term was frequently noted for a more contentious relationship, I think, with the Board of Supervisors, mostly about funding and staffing issues. Even during these COVID times and budget challenges at the county level, we've just not heard this same level of acrimony from you. Is the county and or contract city simply giving you more money? Are you doing more with less? How is your department currently staffed? And is the John J. Benoit Detention Center fully open and functioning at this point?
Combo questions.
So
I'll go backwards because it was the first thing in my head. No, the jail is not fully open. It's a quarter open. So we have the jail in Indio. That was a disaster putting it there anyway. That was the dumbest place in the world to put a jail. But it's a quarter opened. So we have 1,600 beds there, and we have it's occupied by 380 inmates, so we're 3/4 of the way empty. But they will not authorize the money to open that. And it doesn't look like they're going to this year either. It's just not something on their priority list of opening that jail. There was, I became I knew going in, and if you ever listened to anything when I was running before, I said that we were mismanaging our money. I knew enough about our budgets. I was involved with contract city budgets. I was involved with county budgets for 13 years. I knew we were not being truthful with people. And when I was reprimanded for being truthful, I knew there was an issue. So when I took over, I mean, number one, my first mission with the board was we have to be friends. I mean, there's no reason, we're supposed to all be on the same page. The number one role of government is public safety. It is. That is why government exists, is for our public safety. Anything that comes after that is a slush fund, it's good, it makes us feel good, and we should be able to do that. But public safety is number one. So the first thing I had to do was make sure that relationship with the board was fixed. And the only reason it's fixed is because they know I'm not going to lie to them. They know I'm not going to mislead them. And I have nothing to hide in my budget that they believe I'm keeping money or I'm hiding money or that they don't believe I'm doing right. When I took over, we were 650 positions down, but we had the money for them. And we were just getting it back every year. And he was doing that so he could say how great he was at budgeting. He gives money back every year. He works within his budget. Well, you all paid the price. We were 650 deputies short, but the board was giving us the money for that. COVID kind of put a little damper on me, and we had to slow down our academy. So right now we're about 225 positions down, but we have the money for that. I have told the board that there is no way we will not make it through this next fiscal year without feeling that. That doesn't mean we don't need more. That just means we're going to finally be operating what the board is giving us money for. So by me being honest with them, me trusting in their belief in me, and then the changes that we've made, I wouldn't say 100, but maybe 40 or $50 million of changes that we made in our department that made us not only more productive, but just more efficient, that we've saved that money. And that was one thing that I told them that I would show them, I would prove to them. If you allow me to save all this money, I'm not giving it back. You can't take it from me. We will increase the public safety with that money saved, and we'll make it better for the community. And they do trust me. I show them all the time what we're doing, and I may not get along with them all the time, and there are a couple of them that we certainly don't see eye to eye. But number one, I trust them, they trust me, and they know that what we want to do in public safety is to the betterment of all, not to me.
Quick follow-up to that before I go to Chief. Given what's happened in the press and the negative image of police over the last few years, are you having a problem recruiting to your department?
We are not. Luckily for us, we are in one of those last things at the last campaign of 2018 was we were losing 30 deputies per pay period. 30 per pay period. Now think of that. There's 26 pay periods in a year, and we were losing 38 every 2 weeks. And they were going to other departments. They were, whatever the case may be. So we still have attrition. Our deputy attrition rate right now it's 4.7 per pay period. Our correctional deputy attrition is 2. So we are far below that. But the difference being now is they are moving to other states. Everybody that's leaving us is abandoning the ship. They're leaving California. They're going somewhere else. We're not losing them to other departments. We are now a major importer of police officers and deputies from other places where they are coming here to work for us. I don't want to say we're turning people away. We're hiring them as fast as we can, but I'm constantly speaking with other sheriffs and other chiefs of police that are having those issues of hiring, and we're certainly not in that place. We're doing well.
Good. Chief, same question. I know your budget comes from the city. Are you, and you mentioned that you're pretty well staffed up, 102 positions. That pretty close to one officer per 1,000. Are you satisfied with that? Is it enough to keep up with current situation and get you ahead of the curve for the growth? And I know you just graduated a class also, but are you having trouble recruiting?
Well, we aren't having trouble recruiting, knock on wood. We're going to put a recruitment out later this month into May, so we'll see what that list looks like. I'm staffed at 102 sworn officers for a city of about 116,000, so we're not 1 per 1,000, but we don't always have to be 1 per 1,000. That's kind of like a standard that maybe you hear in the public. I think it just depends on the caliber of your officers and your deputies. I try to be a good steward of the taxpayer money. I have a great relationship with all 5 council members. They're huge supporters of law enforcement. I will go up to 104 July 1st, so I have 2 new officers coming on board. Tech is looking at retirements for this year. Probably hire 12 new officers this year, so we'll see what that recruitment looks like. What we're doing here at the PD that's new for us is we have really robust Explorer program, so we go find these kids in high school. I have 22 Murrieta Valley and Vista Murrieta high school graduates working for me right now. So it really is community policing. We get them in high school as explorers. We teach them how we do things in Murrieta. We turn them into cadets. We actually pay them, and then we'll send them to Chad's Academy at some point. And they really kind of are our homegrown officers, our little farm league, if you will. So that's going very good for us as a recruitment strategy and all as well. I am very fortunate to have a good relationship with my council. They are all about law and order. So,
Good. Well, I'd love to keep you here longer. We've still got a ton of questions. We promised to get you out of here in time and manner to get back to work this morning. So this will be the last question, and it's a pretty hardball question for DA Hestrin. We see Chief Conrad down here sporting a facial hair today. We see the sheriff at various times sporting a full beard or a mustache. You're always clean shaven, and is there going to come a period where we see some mutton chops on here? Possibly a Fu Manchu, something going on in the facial accoutrement department.
My wife would kill me. So, and that's my life.
And when our wives aren't around, I've seen Mike with a beard. He looks pretty good.
Nice. This is a tough one. Okay, we appreciate you coming out this morning. I think another big round of thanks to and because last year we were not allowed to have a legislative summit like this, and it's been their tradition now for a number of years with the Temecula Chamber, they have another one scheduled for later this year, October, and it will be a true legislative summit. We will be calling on some of our elected officials, as usual, to come out and share their opinions, concerns, challenges, and so forth with us. So mark your calendars for the October timeframe for another opportunity to come out and do this. We thank our sponsors again. We could not do this without their support. We thank our committee who worked very hard to put this together this morning, and the folks at the Temecula Valley Chamber, obviously. So thank you all very much. And thanks again to our speakers and sponsors. And yes, I never say no to a man with guns.
Thank you. One thing, I know that for me, I do this all the time. That's why Denise didn't come today, because she was afraid of what I was going to say. But I want you all to know whether we were depressing or whether we were giving you bad information, or not bad information, bad news. I want you all to know that Riverside County is an island, and we are in a better place than the rest of the state, and we have our counterparts in other places that we know this for a fact, and our stats prove it. And I know I say a lot about the legislator and everything else. I want you all to know that for Riverside County, with the exception of one in Riverside, which has nothing to do with here, we are represented by outstanding men and women. I don't want you calling and badgering them saying that I said that they were horrible and they need to be replaced, because we have good ones, and we are lucky here. It's that little island for us, and unfortunately, They bang their heads against the wall when they go up to Sacramento, and they're doing a good job of it. And I want you all to know that we are blessed by having good government representatives in Sacramento. So anything that I said today applies to other people, not us.
With that, I'm going to follow Chief Bianco's advice. Well, number one, on your way home, don't pass a black unmarked. So it'll put a whole damper on your morning. And again, taking your advice, Chief, I'm going to head back to the mountains where I have no people around me. So thank you very much. Thank you, Jim. I can't thank you enough for